Imagine a train that has been circling the entire Earth for the past 17 years without ever stopping. If this train stops for even a second, the rest of humanity will be wiped out. This is a story set in the future, where humans tried one last desperate thing to survive rising global warming. Scientists released an artificial cooling chemical called CW7 into Earth's atmosphere to lower the temperature. But this plan backfired badly. The temperature dropped so low that the entire Earth became covered in a thick sheet of ice, and a new ice age began. Slowly, all living creatures disappeared, and humans couldn't escape this disaster either, but a few people survived. They were on a special train built by Wilford Industries before the Ice Age. This train's tracks stretched all over the world, nearly 438,000 kilometers long. This train had a very special engine that could create its own energy without any outside source, and it ran continuously without stopping. At this speed, the train completed one full trip around the Earth every year. This train was built for the rich. Its front cars were filled with luxury, fancy food, schools, parties, even a greenhouse. But completely opposite to this was the tail section of the train, which was worse than hell. That's where the people were who forced their way onto the train. They had no money, just a hope to live. The tail section had no proper food, no beds, and no humane living conditions. Every day they were only given a protein bar, which was their only way to satisfy their hunger. Over the past 17 years, the people in the tail section tried many times to fight for their rights, but each time, armed guards on the train crushed their rebellions. The guards always watched these people closely to prevent any new uprisings, but now things were about to change. A young man named Curtis, living in the tail section, was preparing for a revolution. He was planning this rebellion under the leadership of an elderly leader named Gilliam. Curtis's goal was to reach the train's engine and change the entire system. Every few days, they received secret messages inside the protein bars from an unknown source, telling them what to do next. Today, they received another such message with a name on it. Namgong. This was the man who designed the train's security system. Right now, he was locked up in a jail in the front of the train. Curtis knew that if they could free Namgong, he could help them open the doors to the front cars. Curtis made a plan. Every morning, when the guards came to deliver food, the doors of 3 cars would open, one by one. This was their chance. Curtis and his companions had to attack them, cross 3 sections, and reach Namgong. Many people were scared. They feared the guards' guns would kill them. But Curtis was sure that all their bullets had been used up during past rebellions, and now they just walked around with empty guns to scare people. There was another young man with Curtis named Edgar, who looked up to him as his hero and supported him every step of the way. Preparations were complete. Now they just had to wait for the right moment. Just then, a woman in a yellow coat from the rich section of the train arrived. She gathered all the children under the pretense of a medical checkup and forcibly took 2 of them with her. When a father protested and angrily threw his shoe at the woman, her head split open and blood flowed, but she smiled and took the children with her. A little later, a train official named Mason came there and gave that father such a horrifying punishment that it made every person present tremble. This was the moment Curtis realized he couldn't stay silent anymore. It was time for a new revolution that could bring humanity back to life in this frozen world. A horrifying sight was seen on that cold, frozen train when, at Mason's command, a guard took a man's hand outside and let it freeze in the ice. In a short while, his hand became as hard as ice, and as soon as it was hit with a hammer, the hand shattered like glass. The man writhed in pain, but Mason, without any sympathy, reminded the rest of the poor people that they were alive only by the grace of the train's owner, Wilford, and that their status was nothing more than being crushed under the rich people's shoes. This cruelty further fueled the slowly burning fire of rebellion within Curtis and his companions. The next morning, as the guards opened the train doors to hand out protein bars and entered, it was the perfect opportunity for Curtis to make his move. Although the others were scared of the guards' guns, Curtis risked his life by putting a guard's gun to his head and pulling the trigger. The gun was empty. Seeing this, all his other companions rushed forward and took down the guard. They used a long pipe made from metal drums to jam the doors open so they couldn't close, and then they carried that pipe forward. Fighting their way past the guards, they finally reached the jail section. In the jail section, prisoners were locked in lockers. Edgar opened a locker with a key he'd snatched from a guard, inside which a prisoner named Namgung was locked. As soon as he woke up, he nervously came out. Namgung was an addict, hooked on a special kind of drug pill used on the train. These pills were actually made from factory waste and were highly flammable. Curtis took advantage of this, making a deal with Namgung. If he helped them open the doors, he'd get 1 pill for every door opened. But then, Namgung also opened the nearby locker, which held his daughter Yona. He then changed his terms, saying he needed 2 pills, 1 for him and 1 for his daughter, since she was coming along too. Curtis agreed. Now, with Namgong's help, they moved forward, opening the train doors. When it was time to open the 3rd section's door, Yona said, without even opening the door, that there was a man hanging inside. And when the door opened, indeed a man was suspended on a machine, making some adjustments. This was the food section, where protein bars for the tail section people were made. That man had previously been kept in the tail section. But when it was discovered he was a chef, he was given the responsibility of making the bars. When Curtis became curious about what these bars were made of, he peeked into the containers and his mind was blown. Inside, insects were being crushed. He felt like vomiting, but he thought it better to hide this from his other companions. Just then, he noticed the chef putting the same small capsules into a bar, the ones that had previously contained messages for them. Curtis threatened him, asking if he was the one sending these messages. But the chef explained that someone else left these capsules there, and he just put them into the bars. When Curtis opened that message, only 1 word was written: water. Gilliam guessed that they were probably being signaled to reach the water supply section. The chef explained that this section comes a few cars later, where water is filtered and recycled. Gilliam further said that this is the most important part of the train. If they captured this section, it would mean that the rich people's biggest weakness would now be in their hands. There would be no need to even go to the engine. They could cut off the rich people's water supply and make them agree to their terms. Hearing this, everyone's spirits soared. After this, with Namgong's help, they moved forward and finally reached the door of the water section. Namgung was about to open it when Curtis asked Yona, "How do you know what's behind the door?" Just then, Yona seems to see something. She quickly runs to the door and shouts loudly, "Don't open the door!" But it was too late. Namgung had already opened the door, and the sight before them shocked Curtis and his companions. In that section, many guards were already waiting with axes. But Curtis was not one to back down. Seeing his confidence, courage also rose within his other companions. And without wasting time, both groups attacked each other. A fierce battle began, with both sides struggling to take and save lives. Just then, a train official arrived and shouted over the loudspeaker, "Stop! We are about to cross the bridge." Hearing this, everyone paused. The guards started a countdown, and as soon as it finished, the train began to cross the centuries-old icy bridge. All the guards shouted loudly, "Happy New Year!" Actually, this train ran with such perfect timing that every year at the beginning of the new year, it would pass over that bridge. And this moment reminded people that another year had passed. But this new year was not just a celebration for them. It was also a dangerous warning, because every year, thick layers of ice would form on that bridge, hitting the train with strong jolts. But the train was so powerful that it would cut through the ice rocks and pass through. This happened again this time. As the train moved forward, breaking through the icy rocks, everyone knelt down on the ground to protect themselves from the jolts. In a little while, the train crossed the bridge and the danger passed. As soon as things calmed down a bit, both groups clashed once more. But then Mason arrived. She stopped the fight, yelling, "You lowly people completely misunderstand Wilford's kindness. When you were starving, he gave you food and shelter, and now you stand against him. Now prepare to face the consequences. 74% of you will be killed." Hearing this, Curtis threw an axe which went straight towards Mason, but a guard blocked his attack with a hammer. Mason angrily said, "Now you will all die." Saying this, Mason and her guards put on night vision goggles, because after the bridge, the train was about to enter a long tunnel. Curtis and his companions had no idea about this because they had always been trapped in the closed cars of the train. In just a few moments, the train entered the tunnel and thick darkness surrounded them. Taking advantage of this darkness, the guards began to attack one by one. Curtis and his people were swinging axes without seeing anything, but they had no idea how to deal with these guards. Then Curtis yelled loudly, "Send torches from the back!" Hearing his voice, the man whose hand had already been cut off ran with a torch. In no time, they lit many torches, and the train car was filled with light again. As soon as there was light, Curtis and his companions attacked the guards again. Mason tried to escape, but Curtis threw a knife from behind, which hit her leg directly. She fell to the ground and tried to crawl to the switch to close the door. Seeing this, Curtis ran towards her, but then a companion's voice came from behind. "Curtis, help me!" Behind them, a guard had a knife to Edgar's neck, but Curtis prioritized his mission and left Edgar there to grab Mason. Fearing death, Mason ordered her guard to stop fighting. After this, Curtis's companions captured the guard, and now they controlled the water section. Curtis threatened Mason, saying, "Tell your boss Wilford, otherwise you will die, and we will also cut off the water supply." At this, Mason smiled and said, "You are probably mistaken. The water doesn't come from here. It comes from the front section. This train pulls in ice and turns it into water. And as for Wilford, he won't come here. But if you spare my life, I can take you to the engine myself, where Wilford lives." Curtis thought for a moment and agreed. He told Gilliam, "Now Mason is with us. The path will be a little easier. You stay here with the others. I will go to the engine with a few people and then contact you." Finally, they reached the engine cabin where Wilford was. Upon arriving, Yona passed out from the drugs. In anger, Curtis started hitting the door and told Namgung to open it quickly. But Namgung calmed him down and asked, "Why are you so desperate to reach Wilford?" Curtis sadly replied, "You can't understand my pain because you've never been in the tail section. 18 years ago, when thousands of helpless people boarded this train to save their lives, Wilford certainly gave us shelter here. But the very next day, his guards took all our food and water and imprisoned us in the back of the train. A few days later, starving people started eating the weaker ones." Curtis's voice trembled. "I hate myself because I was one of those people who ate human flesh to survive. There was a woman who had hidden her child from us, but I killed that woman with a knife and took her child to eat its flesh. Just then, an old man came. He asked for the knife from me. We thought himself, but he cut off one of his own hands with the knife and said, 'If you're hungry, eat this, but leave the child alone.'" Hearing him, everyone put their knives down. That old man was none other than Gilliam, who is now dead. Tears flowed from Curtis's eyes. That child we were about to eat was Edgar. I was the one who killed his mother. Since then, I have been living in regret. After keeping us hungry for about a month, Wilford sent us protein bars made of insects, which we have been eating ever since. For 18 years, the fire of hatred for Wilford has been burning inside me, and now I have finally gotten a chance to reach him. So please, open this door." Namgung said in a serious voice, "Curtis, I want to open a door, but not Wilford's cabin door. I want to open the door that has been sealed for 18 years. I want to get out of this train." Hearing this, Curtis was shocked and angrily said, "Do you want to go outside and freeze to death?" But Namgung calmly explained that he has been watching that bridge, which the train crosses at the end of every year for years. There's a crashed plane there, buried in the ice. Every year he could see its back end slightly, but this time more than half of it was visible. This means the ice is melting and the environment is changing. The cold outside is no longer deadly. If we wear warm clothes and go out, maybe we can survive. But Curtis couldn't believe it. He thought Namgung had lost his mind. Just then, Namgung made a bomb by combining the drug pills. The pills also contained explosive elements, but they only had one matchstick, which was with Curtis. When Namgung asked for the matchstick, Curtis refused to give it. At that very moment, the same woman who had previously taken 2 children came out of Wilford's cabin. Without delay, she shot Namgung. After that, she told Curtis that the great Wilford was very happy to see him and was inviting him to dinner. Curtis was taken to the cabin, where Wilford was calmly cooking. He smiled and said, "How are you, my child?" You are the first person from the tail section to reach here. I am very impressed with you." Curtis angrily said, "What right do you have to play with our lives? You give comfort and peace to the rich, and you keep us like animals." To this, Wilford calmly replied, "Everyone's place on this train was predetermined. We are all trapped here, and resources are so scarce that equality is impossible. It is necessary to balance the population and resources, and for this, we have to take strict measures." Curtis had no idea until now that the truth of his fight was something else entirely. Wilford revealed that Gilliam and he were actually partners. The messages Curtis received for the rebellion were actually sent by Wilford himself. As the train's population grew, he would incite Gilliam to rebel, and then the people of the tail section would prepare for war. The people of the front section would also be in this preparation. And when the two groups fought each other, the population would automatically come under control. This plan had been going on for years, but this time, Curtis broke the system. That's why Gilliam had to pay the price with his life. Now someone else had taken his place. Wilford further said that he was now old and wanted someone to take over the train after him. He offered this responsibility to Curtis because Gilliam had already said that Curtis was smart and brave. And now, he had seen it for himself. Meanwhile, there was chaos on the other side of the train. The rich, drunken people were attacking the poor, drug-addicted people. Namguang was fighting them, while Yona was trying to reach Wilford's cabin to get the matchstick from Curtis and blow up the door. As soon as that door opened, the same woman came out with a gun. But Yona, who was hidden, took her down right there. Now Yona came to Curtis to get the matchstick, but by then, influenced by Wilford's words, Curtis had agreed to take over the train. He pushed Yona back. Just then, Yona's gaze fell on the floor, and she started prying up a tile with a spoon. As soon as she looked down, both she and Curtis were shocked. There was a small child who was working like a machine part. This was the same child whom that woman had taken away earlier. Wilford said, "Surprised? Actually, to run this train, some parts are needed. But we cannot make new parts, so we have to use children." Thankfully, the people living in the tail section never held back from having children, because only small children can fit into that small part of the train, and that's why Wilford needed them. Knowing this, Curtis's anger reached its peak, and he beat Wilford to death. After this, Curtis gave the matchstick to Yona and putting his hand into the running machine, pulled out that end. But in this attempt, his hand was cut. At that very moment, Yona lit the bomb, and holding the child went and hid in Wilford's chamber. Before the blast, Namguang tried to close the door, but the switch was broken. Seeing the situation, Curtis and Namguang immediately covered Yona and the child without caring for their own lives, to save them. At that very moment, there was a huge explosion in the train, which blew open the train door. The engine was still safe and sound, and the train was running at full speed. But the place the train was passing through was an icy mountain. Due to the explosion, the snow on the mountain shifted, and a terrible avalanche came directly crashing into the train. The collision was so powerful that the train derailed. Its front part was destroyed in a tunnel, while the back part fell into a gorge. In this terrible accident, every person on the train lost their lives. But thanks to the sacrifice of Curtis and Namguang, Yona and the small child survived. Dressed in warm clothes, both of them came out of the train, and as they saw the outside world for the first time, Yona's gaze fell on a polar bear. This clearly meant Namguang was right. The deadly cold on Earth was gone. Life was thriving again. Yona and the child now moved forward, seeking a new beginning with new hope. And here the film ends.